Hi there everyone, this is Tad Hargrave with another edition of the YouTube Radical Business Marketing Coaching Series focused on your irresistible offer. So, the next thing to look at in the irresistible offer is this idea of making your case. That the marketplace is incredibly skeptical. People don't believe what you say when you just make a claim. You've got to back it up. And one way to think about it is, imagine you're in front of a jury of your niche, of your target market. And you've got to prove to them the answer to this question. Why should I do business with you versus the competition? You've got to be able to say, here's why you should do business with me versus my competition. And this isn't about bashing your competition, but it is about educating and helping them understand the differences to help them make the choice. And if you were going to do that, you wouldn't just get up and wing it. You would really take some time and do some homework to make sure that you had a case really clearly articulated. And there's a book I'm going to recommend called Monopolize Your Marketplace. And I really hated the title because I'm not into monopolies. I'm not into any of that. But then I thought, if conscious, progressive, green businesses monopolize the marketplace, that would be great. So now I like the title of the book. And it's by Richard Harshaw, Harshaw, Monopolize Your Marketplace. And in that book, they lay out what he calls the 5 discovery questions. And these are questions that you can use very powerfully to start building your case. And really, my belief is with these 5 questions, and there's probably more, but with these 5, you can build a very solid case. The first question is called the qualification question. Qualification. And the qualification question is this. Under what circumstances do people tend to start thinking? Under what circumstances do people tend to start thinking about what you sell? What you sell. Under what circumstances do people tend to start thinking about what you sell? Again, not thinking about your business in particular, but generically. So you want to ask yourself, if someone was going to buy a fence, under what circumstances do people tend to start thinking about when would they want a new fence? There's going to be specific moments or triggers that happen that get them to start thinking about it. Not things that are going to make them go buy it, but where they kind of start thinking about it. For buying a fence, it might be that it's kind of old, sagging, leaning. The wind's blown it over. Maybe your pet's getting out. Maybe other animals are getting in and eating your garden. Maybe you just had kids and now you're going to need a fence so your kid doesn't run out on the street. Maybe you just realize your fence is so crappy, but you see your neighbor's got a great one. Maybe you've got some neighbors you're not so thrilled about and you want to build a fence. There could be a lot of specific triggers. If you're going to buy a car, maybe it's because your car keeps breaking down. Maybe it's because it's just so old and you see a new one that you like. Maybe you want more fuel efficiency. Maybe the color's bugging you. Whatever it is, there's going to be specific things that happen that trigger you to think about getting a new car. Understanding what those are really gets back to when we talked about the niche and the problems that they have. What are the problems they have? What are these triggers? What's happening in their life that would make them want to buy what you sell? Your ability to understand and articulate those will build an incredible amount of trust and be very powerful in getting people's attention. If you've just gone through a really particular problem and, your fence has been blown down and you see an ad that says, is your fence leaning or sagging or been blown over? That's going to grab your attention. So, that's the first question, and that's qualification. Are they qualified? Is this relevant to them? Under what circumstances do they start thinking about it? Going through the process of answering that will help build incredible empathy for what they're going through. The second question we've already talked about is this idea of the customer values question. The customer values question. And this question is, pretty simply, what is most important to them when buying what you sell? What is most important to them when buying what you sell? Not buying from you, but just generically. When buying what you sell, what's most important to them? If you were going to hire a life coach, if you're going to hire a graphic designer, if you were going to buy this widget, what's most important to you in buying that? Asking yourself that question, really important. Take some time with it. And when you're asking that, also probably good to throw in what don't they want. Number 3 is the need to know question. I love this question. this question really gets back to the standards, policies, procedures, process in the last episode that we did. And the need to know question is, what do they need to know to feel confident? What do they need to know to feel confident when buying what you sell? What do you need to know? What do they need to know to feel confident when buying what you sell? And this is a really powerful question that most people never think about. And so let me ask you this. If you had a best friend who was in Australia and they called you up and they wanted to hire someone who did what you do, but because of the distance or for whatever reason they couldn't hire you in particular, but they really need somebody. So maybe you're a auto mechanic and you run an auto mechanic shop, and they call you up and they say, hey, I want to find a local auto mechanic shop that I can trust, but I don't even know what questions to ask. I don't know, how do I know if it's a good shop or not? Or I'm buying a car. How do I know if it's a good car or not? I'm going to see a holistic practitioner. How do I know if they're good or not? We need to start asking ourselves, what advice would I give them? And if they're your best friend, you're not going to launch into a sales pitch. You're not going to try to sell them on anything. Obviously, they're not trying to get it from you. But what you would do is educate them. And you would say, okay, here's the 10 questions you need to ask. And these are the only answers you should accept. Or you're looking for a good source of healthy meats, For example, here's what you should ask. You're looking for some good tofu. Here's the questions you should be looking, for in terms of a good, source of it, or good companies. What would they need to know in order to feel confident about buying what you sell? And this is really about empowering them with the information that they need. I remember I saw an ad one time and it said, thinking about buying a digital camera but don't have the foggiest clue about where to start? Ask these 5 questions. Or here's the 5 most important things to look at. A moving company did the same thing. They had an ad that had gotten 70 responses a month. It was a typical moving company ad. You can probably picture it in your mind already. And they got 70 calls a month, the same as everyone else in the industry. And everyone called them saying, how much does it cost? What's the charge? Thank you, click. They're frustrated. They did another ad, they changed it, and they really built a case, and they got like 900 calls a month and sold the business a couple of years later for a few $1 million. But this ad was very educational. And I think the headline was something like, did you know last year in Dallas, Texas, there were over 2,652 lawsuits against moving companies. Ask these 15 questions to protect yourself from an unpleasant moving experience. If you've been screwed moving, you know the importance of this. And then they went through education. Here's what you need to know. What kind of insurance do they offer? What kind of policies do they have around this and that and the next thing? Do they include boxes? Don't they? A lot of questions. And when I read this, I thought it was just the most brilliant thing. And I'm sure if I ever moved, I would go back to that list from the ad itself. That's very powerful. When your ads can be that educational, I'm not even saying you should advertise, but your marketing materials, your website, should be able to build a case and help them with the need to know question. The 4th question is the case building question. And this is basically, what do you do to give them what they want? What do you do to give them what they want? And really that goes back to the customer values. You look at the customer values, what's most important, what do they want, and whether or not you do it. And that's a very important thing when you do the customer values. Don't leave it off the list because you're not doing it right now. Ask yourself honestly, what do they want? What's most important to them? And then what do you do to give them what they want? And be specific, explicit about that. Don't be abstract. Break it down. 5th question is the evidence one. And the evidence is basically, if you were in front of a court of law, you wouldn't just make these claims, you'd back it up. And there's a lot of things. It can be testimonials, case studies, articles. It can be graphs, charts, demonstrations. It can be tours on site. There's a lot of things you can probably do to demonstrate and build your credibility that what you're offering really does everything you say it's going to do. So what's the proof? Maybe there's certifications. Maybe there's documents, awards you've won. All those things, those bits of evidence and proof are very powerful in building a case. So those are the 5 questions, the 5 discovery questions. And if you, at the end of this video, you'll see a website. If you go to that, you can download it's a free virtual workshop. It's like 80 pages, and it goes way more into detail about this than I can here, and into the 5 discovery questions, and can help you walk through it. So I hope this was useful, and we'll see you next time on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching.